Hi there. If you clicked on this video, you must be going through a very rough time. This video, I hope, will encourage you and give you a few tips on how to deal with this state of feeling like there's no fight left in you, feeling disillusioned with the world. So I want to first of all validate how you're feeling. Your emotions are real, and it's important that you feel them through, get support as you need. And then I also want to offer a different vantage point perspective and see if this helps relieve some of the suffering. So when you have no fight in you, there is a silver lining around this. And what that is that the ego is no longer striving or struggling. It's giving up. And there's a point where the ego can't lead life anymore. I'm going to link a video. It's about regret in this video, but the theme is the same as in this one about the limitations of ego. I think it'll be helpful to watch it. So when the ego can no longer do it, and you can recognize that, like, I just can't make myself fight anymore. I can't make myself do anymore from this place of struggle. I don't have it in me anymore. And I want you to still make practical decisions for your life. So this is not a pass to be complacent and get into difficult life situations because we're no longer going to put effort. But when you've kind of hit the brakes in your mind and your ego and your struggle, let yourself stop in your mind. For a moment, just give up the fight in your mind and notice how when you allow that impulse to stop fighting, when you allow it, just for a second, don't make decisions from here just yet. Just for a second, allow yourself to hit the brakes on fighting and struggle. You'll notice a little bit of space open up around that. And then you can get curious about that space and start putting your attention, on that space. And that space is the silence between words, the silence between thinking, and that silence is you. So the one who is struggling, the ego, it's not you. And that's the silver lining around hitting the limit of the ego's power, which is very limited. It's not all powerful. It can't succeed in every situation in a life with countless variables. So much of all of this is out of our control. So what do? How do we find peace amidst all of this, constant feelings of failing or not being able to get to where we want to be, constantly feeling disappointed? And it's noticing that maybe there's some wisdom in this impulse to stop, in this exhaustion, perhaps, of trying, and it's not getting me where I want to go. So as I lean into the stopping, just for the moment, that doesn't mean stop paying your bills in practical life. I'm talking about just the awareness, stopping and noticing. I can't do this anymore. And when you do that, and you allow this stopping, the space will appear. And that space oftentimes will give you a bit of relief, and it'll invite you into following it, getting to know it, getting more familiar with it, spending more time with it, and then eventually seeing that it's you, that it was always there in the background, this space, this silence. So when I'm speaking, you can hear my words, but there's always silence in the background. So even if my words are covering the silence for a moment, that silence is still the background of everything. And so we have to take the time to notice it in order to experience it. If I'm putting all of my attention on my striving, on my thinking, on my feeling, and identifying with that, thinking I am those things, or creating identities about if I've succeeded or failed. I'm not putting my attention on the silence. And the silence is a deep rest. It's just made of, it's your true nature, and its qualities are peace and love and joy and truth. And it's rest because that's who you are. You don't have to perform. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be anywhere that you're not. And even if it doesn't feel practical in your life to just stop and, not do anything for a while, I mean, that's not practical in most people's lives for a long period of time. Just giving yourself the mini breaks of being with the silence can be so rejuvenating and healing. And then it gives you some more bandwidth. And then you have more energy where maybe you need to pick up and put the effort into parts of your life. And you can put effort in without efforting, if you know what I mean. You can do tasks without adding the extra mental dialogue or self-talk that causes additional distress. There's a famous quote that pushing the wheelbarrow is easy. Thinking about it is the hard part. So I know life can still be very challenging and there's definitely pain. But suffering is the psychological suffering, the psychological pain on top of the regular pain that's a part of life. That's the part that we have a little bit of wiggle room around. And so we can continue to kind of go through these things that we need to go through and do while being aware of the extra layer of psychological pain or suffering that might be added onto that. And that's kind of I don't have the fight in me anymore. So I can do things without fighting. And I know practically sometimes we have to fight. Doctor gives you the wrong bill and you need to call them and kind of fight, possibly if they fight you back. You need to fight to get that sorted out. But even then, while you're doing that, you can not buy into it so much. You're just still kind of going through the motions. Okay, I need to do this thing, but I don't need to identify with it. I don't need to get so caught up in it. I can just still take a mini break. They've got me on hold. I can take a mini break and just kind of notice the silence in between the music, in between my thoughts, and rest in there and anchor in there. So when we don't have the fight left in us, and we're feeling perhaps very disillusioned with the world, there's another silver lining around this. So the Buddha said that it's actually very important to become disillusioned with the world, because only when we're disillusioned outside, with the external, we stop looking outside for our happiness. And it causes us to look within without having FOMO, fear of missing out, right? We start to look inside because we've tried all those things outside of ourselves. They've never satisfied long-term. So with this complete disillusionment comes this real certainty and this real wisdom. I can't get my happiness or any satisfaction externally. So then I'm free. My attention is freed up to turn inward and to really stay there in order to explore, introspect, in order to be. And so as I do that, you can see how this disillusionment has really served me. It doesn't feel good in the moment, but again, it's kind of the ego hitting its barrier. It's gone as far as it can go. And then we see there's a point where it exhausts itself, where the mind goes to the extreme of its ability only to recognize the futility of constantly trying with mind. And so we can come back and rest, back in our being. So I do feel a lot of compassion for you if you're going through a very difficult time in your life. And I know some of these situations feel impossible. They feel like catch-22s. But if you have even the 5 minutes to watch this video, see if you can take a moment, again, just to notice the silence in between the words. Maybe you're driving to work and you're at a stoplight and you can just take that moment to check in with yourself, rest, and you can drink from that source, that silence that actually fills you. Energy comes from here. So our life force is basically coming from that place. So when I'm not judging, identifying, all the things that the ego does, resisting, then I'm in a state of equanimity. I'm not judging things. I'm seeing all things as equal, all things as neutral. And so equanimity is our life force. It's where our life force comes from. I'll link a video about that here. So I hope this was helpful. Feel free to comment below if you have any questions or comments or any other ideas for people who've kind of hit the end of their rope. And I'm going to make a few more videos similar to this one to just serve as some encouragement during tough times. So I wish you well, I wish you ease, and I hope this helps alleviate some suffering. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.